Okay, folks, Blake and I are back. Blake McKenzie over here, and my fine self, Rachel's Ghost of Rachel's Ghost Music Channel fame. The Beatles are coming out with a deluxe Rubber Soul, ladies and gentlemen. Big news in Beatle world. Sue, I know the producer here is very excited about that news coming out in October. Oh no, I'm getting sounds coming out of the other little computer. Uh,
Uh-oh.
Sue. Ah, ah. Ah, okay, that's better. Anyway, yeah, so excited about that. I'm an old Beatles fan. And then, but the big news, of course, is the Fauci diaries that come out, all strategic. We'll explain how those, a lot of people want to know how the hell did they get a hold of a guy's diary? Like, what's going on? And some of the memes are just hilarious. Like, they got him like a little teenage girl. You know how girls lie on the bed with their little legs crossed at the ankle, and, they've got their picture of David Cassidy or whatever, BTS for newer groups or newer generation. But so it's all like this. So the some people say Fauci, tomato, Fauci. There's different ways. I'll probably go back and forth between them. Right now, I generally go the path of least resistance, and Fauci seems kind of easy. Jody loves
Kind of like Potsy. Potsy.
Potsy Weber. Boy, you can sing. Treat me like a fool. Anyway,
nice Anson Williams there.
Yeah, Anson Williams. Yeah, the vocals. Potsy Weber, ladies and gentlemen. We're dating ourselves. Anyway, Fauci went all typey and left his musings on government service. Yeah, he did. So to bring in the headlines today, I got them all in my YouTube bookmarks. So I'm going to go that route and route. So okay, that's good. Okay, DARPA, we got DARPA. Oh my gosh. Okay, here's how it went down. Let's do our first share of the day. We're talking about Anthony Fauci diaries, and basically the bottom line, if you want to cut to the quick on all this, is he said things privately through his own correspondence, his own little teenage girl diary, that were different than the rhetoric that the rest of us got through the public microphone. And so, because of this, it raises real concerns, real questions about the efficacy of the government's response to COVID-19. Mm-hmm. How much of it was real? How much was bullshit? A lot of miasma, a lot of pollution, a lot of interference. In Canada, we got the 4th or 7th or 20th trial for Tamara Litch and Chris Barber, who led the trucker convoy. Now, the Canadian government up to this point has been defeated, to my knowledge, 2 times in the lower courts over this treatment of these people. And so it's really, really interesting because the government refuses to take no for an answer, and the treatment of these people was unconstitutional to the limits that we have a constitution, not that we have one, but the Canadian Bill of Rights, whatever the hell kind of appeal we might make to any decency and stemming of government overreach.
Yeah.
In an extension of hubris and arrogance, the Canadian government is retrying them again, appealing the lower court's decisions to stay all charges and say, go live your lives as happy humans. You've paid your debt to society. The charges against them, make no mistake, are criminal mischief. That's it. Usually you get a slap on the wrist. You do a couple of weeks of community service. She's already served like 2 years of community service, already been handed down. She's been doing community service at least for a year and a half or something. She spent time in jail. She's a political prisoner. Make no mistake about it. This is lawfare. This is criminal government weaponization of the legal system to punish Canadian citizens that are speaking out against the system, against the narrative, and they're being punished and made examples for it. It's criminal. It's horrific. It shouldn't happen. And I'm hoping that these revelations from the Fauci diaries will in turn help Tamara Litch and Chris Barber find further justification as to why they had every reason on earth to say, no, we're not going to submit to your government programs, mandated programs about receiving the jab when our conscience tells us to do otherwise. And they should have that right, especially as it's becoming increasingly obvious that there was no benefit whatsoever to social distancing, to the shutting down of businesses, and to the sanctioning of the population. So, for example, Sue and I never did get the shot. So I remember the R&R, we'll call them out, the R&R diner next to us at the time we were in Central Saanich, British Columbia. You could not go to the R&R diner unless you had a COVID passport that showed that you would receive or any I know. Okay, hang on there. Sue's getting upset. But the whole thing is I'm talking about the R&R particularly. And I still remember them out in the parking lot with their little podium there, like you see at restaurants, a little podium with the little book, how many in the party. And they had their little book and they had everything. And people were showing ID to get in behind a roped off area. The whole thing was sickening. There was no need for it. Anyway, it was really, really something. Okay, let's play the clip about how the Fauci Tomato Diaries got there in the first place. Let's enlarge the font for everybody at home. Okay, a great deal of speculation about how Fauci could have been foolish enough to allow his diary entries to come public. But this account from Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Bobby's boy, should largely put that question to rest. We still do not have a full forensic report detailing the precise methodology, file locations, deletion timestamps, et cetera, but the general outline now emerging is that Fauci created the entries on his government office computer, which was not inherently proper, boys and girls. He may then have printed them for his own use, transferred them to a personal device and deleted the original files. Regardless, his problem was once he used government systems, he left a recoverable digital trail. Local copies may have been deleted while backups, archived data, or secondary systems retained them. Those records were eventually recovered through sustained efforts by the new HHS leadership. Well done to RK Jr. and his team. Miranda Devine writes, how the Fauci diaries were discovered, it was thanks to the doggedness of Secretary Kennedy, who wrote an excellent book in 2021, The Real Anthony Fauci, which stands the test of time. It took us about 8 months to dig these out of 11 separate servers where they had been sequestered. So the evidence was called for, and that's how they got a hold of the Fauci diary. So it was on servers. The information was there. Boys and girls, remember, anything you put on the internet never truly dies. It can always be gotten back, retrieved. And in the case of Hillary Clinton's emails, those too apparently have been retrieved. So there's a lot of evidence. I believe there's a time schedule for all this, that things are like dominoes being released in sequence, in order. There's a plan. And Trump keeps saying that. Plan trusted, trust the plan. The old Qism is being said. There's a methodology involved here. Things are being rolled out. It is no mistake that Bob Kennedy went and released these diaries prior to Anthony Fauci's appearance before Congress or before one of these intel committees. Tomorrow, he's set to testify. He is not protected by the Fifth Amendment when he testifies tomorrow because there's new evidence being brought off the service. It's a brand new case. It's a brand new day. So Fauci could be in danger of perjury. And I think at this time, given this sequence, also the other news came is Pulte, I forget the guy's name, first name, Pulte comes in. He's a temporary DNI chief of intel for the U.S. He went and said, he just released this morning a post where he says, we've just gotten rid of 30% of our entire workforce in addition to everything they had done already. So 30% more of the currently acting intel services that were in positions of authority yesterday are no longer in positions of authority or influence today. This is great. It looks to me, it's like a football play. Blake, you're an old football coach. You know this stuff. Okay, you're going to block over here. You're going to run here. I'm going to fake here. We're going to hand off here. And you're going to run the ball and you're going to go here. We're going to kind of lead right, but we're going to move left. That kind of idea. It seems to be that kind of play. Everything being rolled out, pieces being moved on a chessboard in order to make the coup de grace moves. A lot of preliminary movements being made. Exciting times. Heady times. What do you think of these revelations? The Fauci diary and maybe the planning going on with Bob Kennedy going ahead of time to figure out what was going on, getting a hold of these diaries.
Wow.
Yeah, lots there. Lots there.
No. To unpack, to start with the quick note back to Canada, because you talked at the beginning of the show a little bit about Tamara Lich and what happened there.
Yeah.
A major point to this is that the courts found that the Trudeau government was unlawful on declaring war on the people on the trucker protests under the Emergencies Act, which used to be called the War Measures Act in Canada. So it was really an act of war against the truckers. It was a measure. That's what it used to be called. They renamed it the Emergency Act because that sounds a little more polite and not like, hey, we're going to declare war on our own citizens. So that's an important point that Tamara Lich and anybody who was convicted or harassed by the government over this, that they can use that in their defense, that the government was unlawful, thus they have no case, right? Because that's the whole point. We were protesting the unlawfulness of all this COVID measures that had been going on forever. What's now getting to Anthony Fauci, I think I think there's a bigger tell in this. And I think, outside of this is going to test the auto pen pardons, number one, because they're saying that, there was a whole bunch of people that were pardoned by the Biden administration. Sorry, I'm getting an electrical.
I heard the little beep.
Yeah, I've got my battery backups are freaking out here. There must be some wind or something going on outside causing our power lines to act up.
It's Dr. Fauci.
God, they're attacking our servers. But I think what's fascinating in this is just that he was so arrogant and even more to this, mostly
Oh, there goes Blake. Holy smoke. Talk about battery problems. Well, we'll let Blake charge up. In the meantime, we'll play another clip for you kids. Okay, let's do the thing. Okay, boom. Okay, bookmarks. Yeah, there we go. Up here. All right, let's take a look, see what you kids are saying at home on your screens at home. So you can play along with the at-home edition of Blake and Rachel's program here. All right, let's go. Can I make this any bigger? I guess I can. Well, we'll do full screen. Okay, we'll do full screen. Hey, RFK Jr. says America under Fauci's leadership suffered 10 times the COVID deaths per million compared to African countries that barely locked down and never forced vaccine mandates. This is absolutely amazing news here. Now, hang on. I got a little boy backstage who's anxious to meet you all. His name's Blake. He's back bigger than ever.
Sorry, my computer just went down.
Your computer, it said no. Computer says no.
Whatever that power surge was, it took me right off.
Yeah, it took you right out of the game.
Okay,
anyway,
so I was just mid-sentence.
Do your thing. Keep going.
What I just wanted to say, what was fascinating is that the arrogance that they thought that this whole rollout, because no, I don't care what anybody tells me. I think COVID was planned. I don't think it was an accident. I think it was a rollout to bring in a new world order, an authoritarian regime around the world. And they thought they finished with Trump. They thought they had Trump dead and buried. I think that's how confident they were in their globalist new world order, where they were using this as a way to consolidate power, restrict freedoms. This was going to be what they kept telling us was the new normal, right? The new normal is not normal, that you would lose that. So Fauci, I think, thought he was an untouchable. I think he thought he was a godfather type position. He would never be affected because this global world order would now consolidate control, and that would be the end of it. Now you can be free and clear of what you want and do what you want without the restriction of a constitutional republic that might stand in your way and say, no, you are a legal operator here and you're doing crimes against humanity. And I think that just showed the entire operation and the people tied to it, just how arrogant they were. They thought they won. I really do believe they thought they won. When you watch how Fauci operated so confidently that he didn't care. He just knew that the powers globally were consolidating all of these restrictions on rights and freedoms. They had the media lockdown. The media was 100% outside of the alternative media they were trying to stamp out at the very local level. We're talking the individual citizen journalists that they were putting their jackboots on to kind of crush them or deplatform them from everything, not just from YouTube or through social media, but actually tried to shut down their ability to make a living. I mean, they went after them hard. So I think Fauci is, he is the poster child of their arrogance. He thought this is, hey, we won. You guys are finished. We're not turning back. Unfortunately, the rest of the world rose up thanks to the truckers as well, who made a very strong point that this was coming to an end. And then, of course, I think all the revelations with January 6th, the election meddling, all this stuff, which they would have got away with in 2020 had Trump and the MAGA movement did not push hard enough to win in 2024. But all of this is coming out. And I think it's great that Fauci is now exposed. Now it's coming out. This guy was so arrogant. He felt freely to notate his exactly hopes and dreams of where he thought things were headed and where he was doing and what he was up to.
Yeah, I encourage people to read the diaries themselves. There are a number of excerpts out there. The guy, it's filled with hubris. The guy is a classic narcissist. He's going, everybody's talking about me. I'm the top story. And he's writing comments like this. I caused the stock market to drop 3,000 points today. Biggest drop ever.
Well, isn't it interesting? The whole gang that we saw operating, when you look at Clapper and you look at Comey and you look at Fauci, they all had that same attitude that they saw themselves bigger than what they really were. They were little men on a big stage with a big ego. And that's basically what they were. And they loved to shine in the light. And as you see, they were paraded across the media as heroes. And that they
all
just...
right. Now, apart from all the egos and aren't we great? There was real damage done. And Robert Kennedy Jr. coming out with this is quite remarkable. He says basically that America suffered 10 times the amount of deaths per million compared to Africa. Africa, for the love of God. The barely locked down and never forced vaccine mandates. So how come Africa is getting away with so much, less mortality than America with the whole thing? Well, you don't have to listen to me. Here's Mr. Kennedy to tell you himself. Here's Secretary of Health, folks. Let's try and get the volume up on this. Here we go.
We had in our country, because of Dr. Fauci's leadership and other reasons, we had the highest mortality rate from COVID of any country in the world. So we literally did worse than any nation in the world. We had a death rate in our country of 3,000 per million population. There were other countries, for example, Africa, all the countries in Africa averaged about 350 deaths, so 1/10 of what we had in this country. There were nations like Nigeria and Haiti that had 14 per million population, so 1/200th of what we had. We had in our country, because of Dr. Fauci's leadership and other.
All right. So what's remarkable about that is Haiti handled COVID. Apparently, if the Secretary of Health is to be believed, Haiti handled COVID better than the United States of America. Am I taking crazy pills, Blake? What the hell's going on?
Well, I remember when this came up because during COVID, I pointed out to people, look at Nigeria, and I saw that came up because Nigeria had less than 7% of its population participate in the COVID shots, right? They had one of the lowest turnouts for it, even though they were trying to push it to everybody, but it had 7% of its population that actually took the shot. And it had one of the lowest mortality rates everywhere. So put 2 and 2 together. Outside of your regular problems of seasonal flus and other diseases, Nigeria made us look like complete idiots when it came to managing the COVID, whatever you want to call it.
I had heard there's a lot of information, how much is verified, how much is validated. I can't say, but I did hear one of the stories, one of the reasons a lot of our elderly people, remember it came out later that the people that were dying of this thing had 4 to 5 comorbidity statistics, age, weight, physical activity, pre-existing conditions.
The flu always takes those people out.
And the flu generally takes those out. But of course, as you write up above here, producer, nobody was looking at, they suspended all the analysis on the common flu, the yearly flu, the seasonal flu. So that the seasonal flu flatlined during this period of time. It just wasn't there.
It disappeared from the statistics.
Yeah,
exactly. I saw that here. We were going through the statistics here in British Columbia at the time, and I was just floored at the BS that people were being. The entire flu disappeared. It vanished.
Yeah,
and I remember people saying that. Go, where did the flu stats go? And the fact is that people were dying of other conditions and being called it was a COVID death, and it wasn't COVID. They were labeling everything COVID.
Yeah.
It was you died on a motorcycle accident. Oh, COVID death. They were
that motorcycle. When Blake cites that, ladies and gentlemen, Blake's actually citing the Toronto Health Authority that actually put back then Twitter was under the old regime. So it was, it was no longer X. It was Twitter back then. Toronto Health Authority tweeting that if you die in a motorcycle accident, we will treat that. And then we do a postmortem analysis and discover in the postmortem that you, in fact, had COVID. We're going to write your motorcycle accident vehicular death as a COVID death. We're just going to categorize it that. And then we'll go back later, they said, in an afterthought, in order to we want to err on the side of caution, it was said. Now, how do you call that? Erring on the side of caution rather than conflating two entirely distinct causes of death. I leave it for you to work out. But there's more, and there's more disinformation that we were given. Here's another one. This is common knowledge now, but once upon a time, nobody understood it. Well, some did, but a few, it wasn't the narrative. It wasn't the main story. Yeah, certainly wasn't what the media said. According to DARPA, document dated August 13, 21, they knew at that time that COVID came from a lab, that the mRNA vaccines worked poorly, that ivermectin worked since April 2020, that hydrochloroquine worked ditto since 2020. DARPA informed Inspector General and all parties to choose to say nothing to the public about any of it. Let that sink in. For instance, ivermectin, identified as curative in April 2020, works throughout all phases of illness because it both inhibits viral replication, modulates the immune response. Of note, chloroquine phosphate, hydrochloroquine, identified April 2020 as curative, identified in the proposal as SARS-CoV inhibitor, as is interferon, identified May 20th as curative. So this is a DARPA report. So what happens is they sat on this. This information was available. They sat on it. Anybody talking about ivermectin was likened to a fool. Joe Rogan famously, infamously, cited always having horse paste and ridicule and mocking, and that it was some sort of extreme voodoo like drug infused, pot smoked, kind of a psilocybin dream state cure from the ultra way out there, man. You're out there, man, with those kind of
you're a crazy tin hat guy going out there taking horse
paste.
And remember what they did to Rogan too. This is a big sign, like how the media had consolidated under a propagandist agenda. You know, when they took Rogan and they made him, they colorized his face to look sickly and yellow. This guy's a fitness guru. This guy, the jujitsu, he's a martial arts specialist. The guy, you know, could probably kick almost anyone's ass. He's like a Chuck Norris. So, you know, and yet they completely used a psyop in the media to make it look like he was yellow and sickly looking. And when you look at the real picture, it's like not even close. And even Rogan talks about that today. And I think that's where Rogan really flipped, right? I think he was like, I'm done with this. Like, I'm not being part of this propaganda machine anymore, pushing your agenda with COVID. And they made it look like, because there was healthy options out there that were legitimate. And that's the thing. And then now they're finding with ivermectin, there's a lot more to it than just you know, like what you find with a lot of cheap drugs, because that's what they are. They're cheap, and unfortunately, big pharma doesn't like cheap. They don't want it because they can't monopolize it, and they can't sell it to you for $10,000 a shot, right? So
yeah, absolutely, Blake. Okay, now one of the interesting things about the role of media and all this, and they continue to play a very important role. And I remember I've a sociology degree. I did my bachelor degree. I did a double major, history and sociology. And one of the things we learned about in sociology back then was the whole idea of the gatekeeper effect. So you have a guy in charge of the gatekeeper, that's your media, and they decide what to let in the gate or what to let out the gate. And what that gate represents is news. What is news? What constitutes news? We're going to cover this story. We're not going to cover this story. We're going to do this. This is news. This is not news. And they frame it as such. And in doing so, they frame public perception about what's important and what's not important in our lives. Right now, Canadian media, one of the worst on the planet, in my humble opinion, are playing the role of a gatekeeper over the Fauci diaries. So let's make this big so the kids at home can read it nice and easy. A Canadian legacy media are choosing not to share anything about the Fauci diary with their sheeple because they know that sedate sheep is better for their masters. Ryan Garretson, one of the biggest news story happening right now is the Fauci diary, and not one mainstream media outlet in Canada has mentioned one word about it. That is what's controlling information, and the narrative looks like gatekeeper. They only want you to know what they deem important. CBC, Global, Globe and Mail, National Post, Toronto Star, CTV News, CP24, all conspicuously silent over the Fauci diaries. So when you talk to the old folks here, I don't want to know the old folks. That's a song. You young people will know what I'm doing. But anyway, you old folks, they're sitting there with their CBC radio and they're move the antenna, Martha. And they're trying to get their CBC news. They aren't going to hear anything about
CBC radio, let alone TV.
Yeah. So they're moving around and going, Dr. Suzuki says it's going to be a thunder in the coming. Anyway, so it's just crazy. So they won't know nothing about this, and they'll just, COVID, blink. Oh, it's very dangerous. We had very good friends of ours, neighbors, like acquaintances. I can't say good friends, but good neighbors, certainly good neighbors, very kind, loving people. They were scared out of their wits. If I visit them, we've had encounters with them like 4 years after COVID, post-COVID, they're still wearing their masks around. They're terrorized. They're scared to death of dying
Yep.
of COVID, even now, because all they do is listen. Their only source of information is the CBC.
They actually.
Well, now they're just doing the same thing with Ebola, right? I mean, that's now they're saying there's 3,000 cases. So the whole thing just continues. They keep pushing this stuff forward because they have enough people like you described that are willing to be stuck in their little cells and they don't realize it. You know, they're
Now I want to address Solon's comment. The whole scam was for dollars. No, the whole scam
power.
was for political power to secure the 2020 election for Biden. How? Because you can't go out anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, guess what? We're going to have a whole bunch of mail-in ballots for you to vote for the candidate of your choice, Joe Biden. So we're learning more about that. Ladies and gentlemen, again, trust the plan. This is a massive rollout of information systematically, methodically, because of the population. The population has been lied to, just as we did with that headline about the Canadian media gatekeeping that whole story. And of course, here in America, you kids got yours as well with Stephen Colbert and his dancing needles. And they had, I saw a clip of Julia Roberts interviewing Fauci, and she's just gushing. Gosh, it's a privilege to meet you. She's all excited, my hero. And of course, he's just sucking up, getting a witty for the kids back home. Isn't that fantastic? But anyway, so Blake, your thought on Canadian media, the role of media and all this, because Canada was certainly no better and probably worse than American media, if anything were possible.
Well, I think if anything that COVID exposed was the consolidation of media power. We've seen, and I know I've talked about this on the show a few times in the past, but there was really people on the left that raised the alarm in the late 1990s and early 2000s, like Maud Barlow, Council of Canadians. She's very left, but she raised the concern that the consolidation of editorial boards was beginning to happen corporately within the media, and then the buying of these media networks. It used to be, in a lot of cases, your local TV station, your local radio station, your local newspaper were all local, right? Local editorial, local reporters, local people. They mix and mingle with you. They were part of your society. Well, they changed all that. They removed the local power, consolidated it into central power locations, because on the bottom line, that was cheaper. You just need one editorial board for the entire country, who then can send out to all of their franchises now, newspaper, radio, television. But then a little thing came along that I think really something they couldn't control, and that's called the internet. Right. And I think that's where our saving grace came out, because we were able to build our own throughout COVID, throughout pre-COVID. We could now counter this corporate takeover by this sort of hybrid of public and corporate interests. We call that fascism, folks. That's kind of what it was. And that was what the warning is. And that warning back in 2000 by Maud Barlow and her group, Council of Canadians, was this is what was happening in Canada. This is what not only was happening in Canada, it was happening in the US. It was happening in Europe. This consolidation was happening for a reason. The first world is where the power and the money is. This is where they have people say, well, why don't they do that in Africa? Why didn't they do that? Because they don't have the power. They don't have the military or the financial power to make those kinds of changes. It is us in the first world that do. They needed to get control of the first world and consolidate it so that they could do their new world order agenda that we all saw today. But COVID, if anything, we talk about Anthony Fauci. He was given free rein because he was part of that system, because they were able to consolidate that power. And unfortunately, there is a huge percentage of our population, as you mentioned, an aged population, who believe that the media is there to tell the truth. And unfortunately, that media has been consolidated. You no longer have that local media guy that would show up at your fundraisers and he was your buddy and they would go to church, or she was would work at, within different organizations to help locally. They would do things like that, but they don't anymore. And matter of fact, they're shutting more and more of them down. Radio stations are shutting, and newspapers are getting thinner. And now what's happening? They're so desperate because they can't compete with us. And I'm talking us being citizen journalists, being citizens, just talking with each other, questioning. And that was one thing about Fauci that we should bring up. He was the guy that was saying, don't argue with science. Like science was some new religion. Folks, science survives over question. Without question, you don't have science, right? Science would go through the test of metal to be proven through its reliability, method, and scientific method. Scientific method means you would be pounding the crap out of people's theories and ideas. That was the point. Fauci said, no, don't question science. That is the polar opposite of what it was and how this all. But again, going back to the media was consolidated in the US, Canada, and the Five Eyes, if we want to call them, in the free world of the old empire world. And I think we saw firsthand that was the damage that was done to our media. That was the damage when you no longer have independent media locally, independent radio, independent newspapers, independent websites, independent talk shows. They consolidated it. And luckily, I said, the internet saved that.
Well, the internet, yeah, but keep in mind, Sue and I both got booted off Twitter because Twitter wasn't owned by Elon Musk. I got kicked off a bit. I was banned from Twitter. And and you and I would be banned from YouTube if we talked about this very topic, where we couldn't even use the word COVID. That was verboten. And in fact, this video or vaccine vote, these words, even using them in 2026 on this very platform, is going to get it dead in the water. It's not going to travel any further. That's why it's so important for you folks to share and help us out here. But to Blake's point about, trust the science and how good a guy Fauci is with all that line, I want to play this clip for you. This is a beauty clip here from the guy back in the day. Here we go. Fauci said it out loud. The Republicans, they don't like to be told what to do. We're going to break that. The demon openly admitted the vaccine mandates were just a power move to break the people who would roll over and obey. So let's hear him in action as he visits a family back during COVID. We'll make it full size so everybody at home can play along. And hopefully this is large enough. We got the volume. Here we go.
What are we going to do about those other states?
Oh my God. They're going to keep the outbreak smoldering in the country. It's so crazy. I mean, they're not doing it because they say they don't want to do it. They're Republicans. They don't like to be told what to do.
Right.
And we got to break that, unpack that.
How you guys doing with vaccine?
I haven't gotten it yet. I'm waiting for them to be able to.
Oh, you should get it first. Okay, that way you won't give it to them.
Oh, I thought I would give it to them if I get it.
No, not at all. In fact, we got to get you vaccinated so that if you were to get infected, you could pass it on to them. So you're actually protecting your family by getting it vaccinated.
What are we going to do about those other states?
Oh my God.
Okay, and so that thing is wrong on a couple of levels. One is that they were telling you the lie that if you got the vaccine, you wouldn't be able to transfer it to anybody else. That later on turned out to be incorrect. There was no truth to it at all. And so it didn't act as an inhibitor. It was just a lie. And the whole idea, the attitude, we got the Republicans, there are a lot of problems because they don't like being, quote, told what to do. That's an admirable quality, ladies and gentlemen. I should hope that nobody likes being told what to do. Stand up for yourselves, get a backbone, and stand up for what's right and truth. Because if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. All right. In 1990s, people noticed global conglomerates were richer than third world countries. Now they're richer than Western nations. They are closing in with the clout to change the way you live. This is about the rise of corporations and, as they continually buy up smaller fish, so to speak, and become more increasingly powerful. And so government needs to place restrictions on their power. We have that, what do we call that, Blake? You got one company competing, it's going to buy out another, and then you need to go work it so it doesn't gain a monopoly in the market. There's a word for it.
Anti-collusion law, antitrust laws. Yeah.
Antitrust, that's the word. Thank you, Blake. Antitrust is what we're talking about, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, Blake, so you saw FOTC in action right there, which really underscores or illustrates your point beautifully. How, it's all here's the science, and speaking so dismissively of the Republican population.
Well, and that walk that he was on in that video, there was one where he gets to a guy that literally beat the crap out of him verbally. And if you find that video, it continues on that same walk where they're walking the neighborhood. It was a complete propaganda piece, but there were actual people pushing back against him in that video. And you can find the videos of that. It's fantastic. They literally walk away. They had no way to argue with the guy because he was correct. He was a guy that was truly woke, the real woke, not the fake far left woke mind virus. But this guy was aware of what was going on and hammered Fauci really good. And it's funny because, I can tell you this, if you grew up in poverty and grew up in rough neighborhoods, the first thing you learn street smarts, don't trust anybody. So if you're going to try and convince, go to these neighborhoods, which are much rougher, and you thought you could do your little democratic machine and create this propaganda piece is like, look, we're helping the people. No, you're never helping the people. They're going to question you and they're not going to trust you. And as soon as he got questioned, he couldn't handle it. It was a great piece. If we can find it, it went everywhere. If you can find that video, but
all right.
But one of the things, it's really important. Again, Fauci thought he was science. He was like a priesthood defending and being you needed to comply. He was like the Spanish Inquisition, right? If you don't comply with what we believe science is, we will put you to torture or to death, or in otherwise cut you off. That was kind of the way they were doing things back then. And I think, the whole idea of reliability and validity in the scientific method went out the window. Just nobody was allowed to argue it. Nobody.
Okay.
You were told.
Now, Blake, hold on here. Things are getting a little intense here on the program. I need to calm you all down with a public service announcement from a great channel. Blake and I are here to help you kids. We've got this next news item for you, and this is just to help calm you down. I know a lot of you are feeling anger over this particular episode. You're not dealing well. Let's scroll down and get to the truth of it. Here we go. This is our public service announcement. Stop leaving your kids with the grandparents. I recently asked my nephew how old he was. He said, God willing, I'll be 7 in June. God willing. Don't leave the kids with the grandparents. We thought of you, Blake, when this one came across. Blake was just recently spending some time with his own grandkids. All right, you know what? This is a real fun little clip here, Blake. A little change of direction. I love Kevin O'Leary's prediction here. A union of Canada and USA to counter China. Freedom versus communism for the final battle. Got to kick the commies here out of government first, but very interesting comment from Kevin Leary. So let's see what Mr. Leary has to say. Canadian by birth, and I think he's still Canadian, but I think he's got dual citizenship because he loves America. Here we go. What do you got for us, Kevin?
Well, I have some very good news for Canadians. You should consider your passport a stock certificate for the future, because there is no country with wealth like this one. And here's what's going to happen in the next 20 years. I can practically guarantee this is going to happen. This tiff, this dispute with our largest neighbor to the south, is going to disappear out of economic necessity. We will somehow combine these two economies, not with sovereign designation. Canadians will remain Canadians, Americans will remain Americans. There will be an EU passport you can pursue eventually. We will diminish and resolve and eliminate all tariffs of all commodities across that border to create an economy that can spend 5% of its GDP defending itself against China, because they have a plan. They're going to come over and they want to become the number one economy on earth. We have to remain that with our version of democracy and freedom of speech and the things that Canadians and Americans believe in and have for hundreds of years. We too, it may not be under Carney, and Trump may not be under him, but I guarantee you, combining the two economies to a common currency, a common EU type passport, and keeping sovereignty is the solution. And you will see it in your lifetime. I guarantee it that's going to happen. 100%, because it has to.
All right. What do you think of those words, Blake? Pretty inspiring to me. It's quite inspiring to go, holy smokes, would I ever love that? You know, I buy a lot from Amazon. I do a lot of purchasing across the border. I would love nothing more. And of course, we got so many friends and family across the border. Wouldn't that make things a lot easier? My sister lives in Colorado, for example. No big deal. Go over, see Mazzy. Let's bring Mazzy a bottle of gin over for his, for his little martinis. Blake, your thoughts?
Well, I think I've been kind of promoting this on my back screen here. I think the only answer for Canada's future is to unite with the United States as Fortress North America. And that under Fortress North America, I don't like using EU as a standard, because I think EU is governmentally is trash. I don't, that's not the model, but the idea that we can create a common economic union to protect the interests of the true free world, be the freest place on earth, and that we will export those values on who we trade with as well. And I think that's kind of Trump's point. We have these values. We believe in this. We want to do business with you on this level. If you're not going to play fair with that, then we are going to tariff the hell out of you. And that means if it comes to the point we don't want to do business with you, that's just what it's going to be. And unfortunately, China has been played as well in this game, by the globalist elite that have been running this out of the City of London, out of Davos, et cetera, using them as the cheap producers of cheap crap for the rest of the world at a fraction of the price, at the expense of North America's industrial might. And that's why Main Street is dying, because who was providing Europe after post-war development? It was primarily North America. We were the hewers of wood, drawers of water. We were then producing that into goods and products and services that the people of Europe needed to rebuild. And we were a big part of that machine, and rebuilding Japan, and also protecting Korea from total communist takeover. So this was a big change. Look at South Korea now. It's one of the most powerful economies on a little peninsula in the world. So I think this idea that we need to come together is 100%. It is the future. It is the only way out. I don't know how to get rid of the empire loyalists out of here. They are so dug in Canada. They're the problem, right? Because they have been told their entire lives that America is a problem and we're not. We're the kind, courteous slaves to the empire, because that's all we are, right? If you really look at it, we don't have the same freedoms as America.
No.
But the answer to saving Canada is to unite with the United States as a single common market. But that would mean, folks, that you no longer get to tariff, have your little monopolies across Canada. Those end. All of it has to end, just like Senator Kennedy said. He goes to, when he told everybody last year in Canada, just drop all the tariffs. Let's all be friends. Get rid of your market supply managed monopolies and freely trade on both sides that way.
This is where we point to Promethean action, where they talk about Canada is beholden to the king, and the power of City of London and all of that. And so right now we're orientating under the Carney administration directly in opposition to America, so that we in turn can turn and look at ourselves, Blake, and go, are we the baddies? And the answer is an unequivocal yes. We, our administration, are in fact the bad guys in this scenario. And America, the Trump administration, are without question, beyond any reproach, the absolute white hats in this.
Name one nation in the world that Trump has offered, outside of Greenland, really, but one nation in the world that's been given an invitation to join the United States.
What an honor that would be.
And everybody else in the world is scrambling to get to the United States. They're not scrambling to get to North Korea. They're not desperately trying to get into China. They're not
ain't big either.
You know, and the only way the rest of the world, and the free world, we call it, or the West, the Western world, used to be free, but Europe, a lot of it's not. The only way they're importing all of their millions of immigrants is by giving them enticements, free welfare, free healthcare, free this, free that. That is the only way they can get them. Well, most people were going to the United States because they had the dream of being something they wanted to be in life. Own their own land, own their own property, you know, build their own business. You know, sky's the limit for me. There's no governmental pressure to prevent you from moving forward. Where Canada, no, let's stay under a heavy burdensome bureaucratic nightmare run by a handful of few elites through what I call pension fund communism now, because essentially the public sector has merged with the corporate sector and they're buying everything up, as we talked about earlier, the anti-collusion, antitrust. Well, the very public service unions, the very pension funds now have become your enemy. They're even though supporting you, but that's how you'll own nothing and be happy. That is their globalist agenda. So that freedom is where what Kevin O'Leary is talking about is Canada has to go that way, because all the private equity, your personal wealth, your choice to where you spend your money and invest it is vanishing out of Canada and is being consolidated. But that will have to break. And I don't think America will put up with it much longer. I think Trump has arm wrestled Larry Fink and the BlackRock gang of pension fund trillionaire asset managers, saying, we're done with you playing these games around the world. If you want to play ball, bring your money home, build industry here, invest in America's future, invest in North America, fortress North America, because I think that's the point. We'll need a common currency. There's lots of stuff rolling out this summer. And going into the fall, I think we're going to see more on precious metals, more on currency adjustments, because a lot of people aren't trusting the paper fiat money that we're using today. You can tell by the cost, right? Inflation means you're
in Canada. It's really
well here. We're seeing it more than anybody, but even in the U.S., you can't. Gold isn't $4,000 an ounce U.S. for a reason. Mm-hmm. It's that much because of inflation. Gold doesn't change in value. Your currency is deflating, and increased. Takes more of your dollars. It's devaluing your currency, and that is what these people are doing around the world. And I think Trump wants to stop that. I think he's going to change it so that you actually can create true financial wealth. And I think that's the future for Canada, the United States, is we need to become wealth sovereign within ourselves on that, not be dependent off the government system, because that's the trap. That is the trap we see today, where we're getting promoted like in Europe, UK. The Canadian model is you'll own nothing and be happy, put everything into these pension funds, our few gang of big, massive corporations that you own as a shareholder, as a pensioner, and you control. And that's elbows up, folks. That is elbows up in Canada. That's your empire loyalists. They're loyal to their pension. And that is the problem. And that is where they've got the lock nailing in. So Kevin O'Leary knows that. He's a private equity guy.
Yeah, he is.
Right? And that's why when he sees $1 trillion of private equity fleeing Canada, because those guys are devaluing our assets here so they can pick it up at pennies on the dollar and they'll own it all. So maybe at that point they'll say, yeah, let's join the United States now. But the United States should come out and say, yeah, not so fast, pension fund guys. We're not going to allow you to create communism through the back door.
All right. Now, because there's a lot with communism, a big story. We still got a couple of stories here in the pipeline that I wanted to talk about. One of the great old adages: "The road to hell is paved with good intentions." Sometimes not, but this next story speaks of kind of the liberal tendency to assume that all cultures are equal and everything's all the same. And boy, oh boy, my uncle worked for the United Nations. He was a foot soldier on the ground working with the UN. They used to deliver clothes, piles and piles of clothes to kids in Egypt. I remember talking specifically about Egypt. He says they come back a week and they'd see the very clothes they'd given these kids in absolute rags, because they were not the kind of clothes that we in the West had were not treated the same way. The lifestyle was so different from what an average 5 or 7-year-old would go through in Canada and the United States with what was happening, in the back roads of Egypt. So this story, I just had to, you can't really laugh at it. You just go, my God. This appeared on Rogan in Conversation. You make up your own minds about it. It is fascinating. It's oh my God. Here we go.
And then he developed the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and they were really concerned with global health.
Oh my God. Dude, do you know what they did fucking in the Cabora Bassa Delta with their mosquito nets? Why would you? But do you know what I'm talking about at all?
No, what'd they do?
Dude, I'm going to go on a fucking tirade here.
Please do.
Okay. So the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation decided that there was too much malaria in Africa, right? Which you and I could probably agree with. Malaria is bad. So what did they do? They gave all of these people living in tribal villages. I'm totally pirated your thing. I'm sorry, but I'm going to go on a fucking rant here. They gave all these people living in the Cabora Bassa Delta, which is the breadbasket of the Zambezi Valley, meaning like where more fish are born. It's a nursery for fish, right? Not just there, but this is a good micro example. They gave millions of mosquito nets out to all these people to avoid malaria. Guess what the people who are starving to death did with their mosquito nets?
Fish nets.
They fished with them.
They fished with them. A mosquito net has a hole that is so small that a mosquito can't get through. So guess what? These mosquito nets now indiscriminately catch tiny baby fish in areas like Cabora Bassa, where the fish go to breed and reproduce and populate. So now all of a sudden you have thousands and thousands of people that have been handed nets, that have been living one way for hundreds of thousands of years. They don't give a shit about malaria. They have their own way of dealing with malaria. They sit in smoky huts at night. They sleep with a campfire, everything else. Yes, they still get malaria, some of them, but they deal with it their own way. Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation come in, hand out millions of mosquito nets, absolutely collapse the entire population of fish that feed millions of people, because these people just take the nets and fish all the baby fish out so that those fish don't grow up to make substantial protein sources. So now these wonderful philanthropists that have given out millions of nets have destroyed an ecosystem, crashed a fish population, and created widespread hunger for people that otherwise had plenty of resources. All because they were trying to help with their mosquito nets.
Oh, God.
It's just like, it's a fucking disaster, dude. They've taken such a rich and important part of Africa, one of the most abundant freshwater fisheries in the world, and destroyed it because they're helping by handing out mosquito nets.
Good God.
Yeah, I don't know. Sorry, I told you I'd go on a rant, but it's like, it's so bad what's happened over there. And they're still giving out mosquito nets, by the way. And you literally watch these guys line up, take a mosquito net, and it never goes in their house. It goes straight to catching fish that are this big for them to eat.
Oh, God.
Yeah, it's just, well, the road to hell.
Bong show. Bong.
Like, they've done, this has happened historically before, where people, in an effort to try and help first world nations, so to speak, try and help out these other civilizations where they don't have the education. No, you got to let your little fish, catch and release. Oh, we got people, we got our Fish and Wildlife Service people out on the water. Put that little fish back there, Pilgrim. That got to let it grow. Otherwise, you're going to get a fine because you're depleting the fish stocks. It's kind of like, safety net, pardon the pun, safety net over fish net. Absolutely a lesson in futility. I was just reading one where apparently Canada gave 180 millions to the tiny nation of Ghana, who's got a great football club, by the way. Go Ghana. But here's the deal. They give a whole bunch of motorcycles, scooters to move around. but they didn't give them repair parts or gasoline. So all these bikes are dead and dying out, and they're just wasting away in vacant lots, in the junkyards.
And for some reason that story again goes under the radar screen in Canada, of course. But the point is that they gave all these motorcycles to Ghana under some kind of gender.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
which makes no sense at all. How do you tie let's donate motorcycles to Ghana with gender support systems? Like, are they giving them to women so they can get around? I mean, I have no idea where this insanity comes in, but a lot of people would question Bill Gates because, I mean, would he be doing that intentionally? Are they intentionally trying to crash local ecological systems, knowing full well what those nets would be used for, just like people have been finding, their program with ticks? Right? Why are all these ticks being dumped all over the place in boxes full of Lyme disease and other illnesses? And apparently Lyme disease was an introduced disease through biological warfare. So it's fascinating that these guys continue to do what they do in the name of helping people. And it does just the opposite, right? It's almost like it's done intentionally. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there going, well, if it's Bill Gates, it's probably intentional.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's just, I mean, clearly it's another example of the road to hell being paved with good intentions. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been a real quick hour. We really rocked through it. A lot of stuff. So tomorrow, tune in. Fauci is going to be up on Capitol Hill. He got the bill up on Capitol Hill. And they're going to be questioning him. It'll be really interesting. I think there is a plan. I think Fauci is part of the rollout information. Once we get all the info on Fauci, then that'll lead into why did you have all the lockdowns? What about mail-in votes? Is there a connection? I think we're going to find that there is. Ladies and gentlemen, I love this song. Let's go out on a high. I've played it before. It goes on for a little bit, but Elon Musk loves it, and I love it too. Let's give it a whirl. Blake, thank you so much, as always, for your insight and your patriotism, and above all, your love of God through Jesus Christ our Lord. Okay, here we go.
Sweet land, sweet land of the weary and the wild. Oh, where are you, my sweet The garden's either dying or about to come alive. The river's either drying or it's deep enough to dive. Can't tell if it's the dusk or if it's breaking into dawn. Are we going on or are we going gone? Somebody said a storm is coming, but it's been a long time. I don't know what's up ahead, but please, baby, don't you look behind. So tell me, is it gonna be free energy forever, or just the same damn old grind? Singing If you can hear this from the other side, across this great quantum divide, don't get me wrong, now is the time to stay strong. So, with all of that, I'll say, God bless the USA! God bless the USA! Sing it, sweet land, going on, 250 years and it's going on and on the edge of a forever or the edge of being gone. Is it midnight? Is it morning? Is it ruining? Is it time to rise? 250 summers gone by. So just go on and tell me those sweet lies, the kind as sweet as these July. Going on and going gone. Light up, light, higher. Sweet land's going on, going on. Sweet land, going, gone. So please, just know that we can still rebuild. We can still make something better.
Yeah, man. God bless America. Man, amazing. Greatest nation ever. All right, everybody. That'll do it for me and Blake. We'll be back on Friday. So there'll be a post Fauci. We'll be able to see how he performed on Capitol Hill and everything else. What a nation. If you're an American, you count yourself as being amongst the most blessed people on the planet. Unbelievable. What a nation. I can't say enough good things about you people. Hopefully Canada will find the wisdom to join and form that fortress, North America, that Blake talked about. All right, everybody. That'll